Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you'd give them your last breath? I did. And while I lay dying in that hospital bed, my husband stood over me, planning my funeral with his mistress. But what they didn't know was that I could hear every single word. My name is Loretta Green. I'm 57 years old, and this is the story of how I came back from death to bury the man who tried to bury me first. Before we go any further, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Drop your country and what time you're watching in the comments below. Also, download your ebook titled Suspense and Thriller Stories by clicking the link in the pinned comment. Now, let me take you back to the moment everything changed. The hospital room smelled like bleach and broken promises. I remember lying there, my body so weak I could barely lift my hand, the IV drip counting down what everyone thought were my final days. The cancer had spread fast, too fast. The doctors used words like aggressive and stage 3 and prepare for the worst. Ronald, my husband of 32 years, nodded along like a dutiful spouse. He held my hand during the consultations, he wiped my forehead when the fever came, he smiled at the nurses and played the role of the devoted husband perfectly. But I knew better. See, there's something about dying that sharpens your senses. When your body starts shutting down, your mind wakes up. You notice things you missed before. The way he checked his phone every 5 minutes, the cologne that wasn't his usual brand, the lipstick stain on his shirt collar that he said came from a client's wife hugging him at a business dinner? I wanted to believe him. God knows I wanted to. But then came that afternoon, the one that would split my life into before and after. I was drifting in and out of sleep, the medication making everything feel distant and fuzzy. That's when I heard them. Ronald's voice, low and careful, and then another voice, a woman's voice, younger, sharper, hungrier. "How much longer?" she asked. "Soon," Ronald replied. "The doctor said maybe 2 weeks, a month at most." "Good, because I'm tired of waiting, baby. I want to start our life together." I kept my eyes closed. My heart was racing, but my body wouldn't move. I was trapped inside myself, forced to listen as my husband and his mistress discussed my death like it was a business transaction. "Did you call the funeral home?" she asked. "Yeah, everything's arranged. White lilies, just like she always wanted." They laughed. And that's when I knew I wasn't just fighting cancer anymore. I was fighting for my life in ways I never expected. Trust me when I tell you, this story gets worse before it gets better. But stick with me, because what happens next will make you believe in justice again. Let me tell you how we got here. Because 32 years don't just disappear overnight. They fade slowly, like ink left out in the sun. Ronald and I met at Greater Faith Baptist Church in Birmingham. I was 25, working the night shift at County General Hospital. He was 27, fresh out of trade school with calloused hands and dreams bigger than his bank account. We sat 3 rows apart every Sunday, but he always found a way to talk to me after service. "You got the kindest smile I ever seen," he told me one morning, holding a styrofoam cup of church coffee. I blushed. Mama raised me not to be forward with men, but Ronald had this way of making you feel like the only person in the room. Within 6 months, we were married. Within a year, we were broke. But we were happy. At least, I thought we were. Ronald started Green Construction with a borrowed truck and a toolbox his daddy left him. I kept my nursing job, pulling double shifts so we could make rent. I'd come home smelling like antiseptic and exhaustion, and he'd have dinner waiting. Usually something burnt, but it was the thought that counted. "One day, Loretta," he'd say, "I'm going to build us a house so big you'll get lost walking to the kitchen." I believed him. That was my first mistake. The business grew slowly. Ronald took on small jobs, bathroom remodels, deck repairs, roofing. I handled the books at night, balancing spreadsheets while he snored beside me. Every dollar we made, I saved. Every contract he signed, I read twice. I wasn't just his wife. I was his partner. Or so I thought. The first crack appeared 5 years ago. Ronald came home late one Tuesday smelling like perfume that wasn't sold at any hardware store. When I asked about it, he laughed it off. "Client's wife hugged me after we finished her kitchen," he said. "You know how grateful people get?" I nodded. I wanted to believe him. Then came the late-night phone calls. The business trips to Atlanta that lasted 3 days when they should have lasted 1. The new clothes he bought without telling me. The way he started showering as soon as he walked through the door like he was washing something off. I asked questions. He had answers. Always smooth. Always reasonable. "Baby, you're stressed from work. You're seeing things that ain't there." So I stopped asking. I prayed instead. I prayed that my suspicions were just paranoia, that the man I married was still the man sleeping next to me. But deep down, I knew. You always know. You just don't want to admit it. See, love makes you blind, but it also makes you stupid. I chose to stay blind because the alternative, that I'd wasted 32 years on a lie, was too painful to face. Then, my body started breaking down. It began with fatigue, the kind that sleep doesn't fix. Then came the stomach pain, sharp, stabbing, relentless. I'd double over at work, gripping the nurse's station counter until the wave passed. My coworkers noticed before I did. "Loretta, you need to see a doctor," my supervisor told me one morning. I waved her off. "I'm fine, just need more rest." But I wasn't fine. And deep down, I knew that too. By the time I finally dragged myself to the doctor, the cancer had already made itself comfortable. Pancreatic. Stage 3. The doctor's mouth kept moving, but I stopped hearing words. All I heard was the ticking clock of my own mortality. Ronald sat beside me in that office, his hand on my knee. He asked all the right questions, he nodded at all the right times, but when I looked into his eyes, I saw something I'd never seen before. Relief. Not grief, not fear, relief. Like a man who just found his losing lottery ticket was actually a winner. We drove home in silence. I stared out the window, watching Birmingham blur past me. The city I'd worked in, lived in, loved in. I wondered how much of it I'd still get to see. "We'll get through this," Ronald said, his voice flat. "You're strong, Loretta. You always have been." But he didn't hold my hand. He didn't cry. He didn't even look at me. He just drove. That night, I lay in bed, clutching my Bible, praying for strength, praying for healing, praying for my husband to love me the way I'd loved him. God answered, just not the way I expected. 2 days later, I started chemo. The poison they pumped into my veins was supposed to kill the cancer, but it felt like it was killing me too. I lost my hair in clumps. I lost weight so fast my wedding ring slipped off. I lost my appetite, my energy, my will to fight. But Ronald? He didn't lose anything. In fact, he seemed lighter. He whistled while making breakfast. He took more business trips. He stayed out later. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. and heard him in the kitchen. I couldn't walk without feeling dizzy, but I forced myself out of bed. I stood in the hallway, hidden in the shadows, and listened. "I know, baby, I know," he whispered into his phone. "It's hard on me, too, but we just gotta be patient a little longer." My legs went weak. "She's getting worse every day. Doctor says it won't be much longer now. Then we can finally be together. No more hiding, no more sneaking around." I pressed my hand against the wall to steady myself. My heart wasn't just breaking, it was shattering. "I love you too," he said softly. "I'll see you tomorrow." He hung up. He heard him pour a glass of water, then walk back towards the bedroom. I stumbled back into bed just in time, pretending to be asleep. When he slid under the covers, I kept my eyes closed, but my mind was wide awake. Who was Baby? How long had this been going on? And why was he talking about me like I was already dead? I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of betrayal pressing down harder than any cancer ever could. The next morning, Ronald made me oatmeal. He kissed my forehead. He told me he had a meeting in town and would be back by dinner. I smiled and said okay, but something inside me shifted that day. The woman who wanted to believe, who wanted to stay blind, who wanted to keep praying for a miracle, she was gone.
Chemo doesn't just kill cancer. It kills everything. Your strength, your hope, your sense of self. I'd look in the mirror and not recognize the woman staring back. Hollow eyes, gray skin, a body that felt like it belonged to someone else. But worse than the physical pain was the loneliness. Ronald stopped touching me, not in a way a husband touches a wife, but in any way at all. No hand on my shoulder, no hug before bed, no reassuring squeeze when I cried. It was like I'd already become a ghost. The hospital became my second home. I'd go in for treatment, sit in that cold chair for hours while poison dripped into my veins. Then Ronald would pick me up and drive me home in silence. He'd help me to bed, bring me water, then disappear into his office for the rest of the night. I wanted to confront him. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to demand the truth. But I was too weak, too tired, too afraid of what the truth might actually be. So I stayed quiet, and I watched. I started noticing things I'd missed before. The way he'd step outside to take certain calls. The way he'd smile at his phone when he thought I wasn't looking. The way he'd come home smelling like someone else's soap. One afternoon, after a particularly brutal chemo session, I asked him to stay with me. Just sit with me. Hold my hand. "I can't, Loretta," he said, checking his watch. "I got a big meeting with a client. This one could change everything for the business." "Please," I whispered. "Just 10 minutes." He sighed, like I'd asked him to move a mountain. "I'll be back tonight. Get some rest." And he left. I lay there in that empty house, listening to the clock tick, feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. The cancer was eating me from the inside out, but it wasn't the cancer that was killing me. It was him. A week later, my doctor called Ronald and me into his office. I was so weak I needed a wheelchair. Ronald pushed me down the hall without saying a word. The doctor's face was serious. He pulled up scans on his computer screen, images of my insides that looked like abstract art. "The tumor isn't responding as well as we'd hoped," he said carefully. "It's not growing, but it's not shrinking either. We need to be realistic about what that means." I felt the room tilt. "How long?" I asked. The doctor hesitated. "It's hard to say. Could be months, could be weeks. We'll keep you as comfortable as possible." Ronald didn't flinch, didn't gasp, didn't reach for my hand. He just nodded. "Thank you, doctor," he said calmly. "We appreciate your honesty." On the drive home, I finally broke. "Aren't you scared?" I asked him, tears streaming down my face. "Of what?" "Of losing me." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I'm scared of a lot of things, Loretta." But he didn't say he was scared of losing me. That night I heard him on the phone again. This time I didn't even bother pretending to sleep. I just listened. "The doctor gave her a few months at most," he said quietly. "I know it's hard, baby. It's hard for me too, but we're almost there. Just hold on a little longer. I closed my eyes and let the tears fall. The next day, I decided something. If I was gonna die, I wasn't gonna die stupid. I needed to know who she was. I needed to see her face. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I went through Ronald's phone. He'd left it on the kitchen counter while he showered. My hands shook as I picked it up, praying it wasn't password protected. It wasn't. The screen lit up, showing a text conversation with someone saved as T. I scrolled through the messages. My stomach turned with every word. Can't wait to see you tonight, baby. She doesn't suspect a thing. Once she's gone, we'll finally be free. I love you more than anything. There were photos, too. Her in red dresses. Her in his truck. Her in places I recognized. Our favorite restaurant. The lake where we got engaged. Even our church parking lot. My husband wasn't just cheating. He was replacing me. And then I saw the most recent message, sent just 2 hours ago. Visiting hours is until 8. Room 302. Let's see how bad she really looks. Room 302. That was my hospital room. She was coming to see me.
I didn't tell Ronald what I'd seen. I just waited. 2 days later, I was back in the hospital for another round of treatment. The nurses hooked me up to the IV, adjusted my pillows, and told me to rest. Ronald said he had to run an errand and would be back in an hour. I knew better. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding despite the sedatives in my system. The room was quiet, except for the beeping of machines and the distant sound of footsteps in the hallway. Then I heard heels. Click, click, click. Sharp, confident, getting closer. The door opened slowly, and she walked in. I'd imagined her 1,000 times, but nothing prepared me for the real thing. She was younger than me, mid-30s maybe, beautiful in that obvious way, tight red dress that hugged every curve, long black hair that cascaded down her back, nails painted the color of fresh blood. She stopped when she saw me, her eyes scanning my frail body like she was inspecting a piece of furniture. "Oh," she said, not even trying to sound surprised. "I must have the wrong room." But she didn't move. She just stood there, staring. I should have been afraid. I should have been angry. But all I felt was tired. "Who are you looking for?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Her lips curved into a slow smile. "Ronald Green. I heard his wife wasn't doing too well. Just wanted to stop by and check in." The audacity! The absolute nerve! "I'm his wife," I said quietly. She blinked, tilted her head like I was a puzzle she was trying to solve, then smiled wider. "Oh, you must be Loretta. I've heard so much about you." My heart felt like it was being squeezed. "Funny," I managed. "I haven't heard anything about you." She laughed, a light, airy sound that made my skin crawl. "Well, I guess Ronald likes to keep some things private." She looked around the room, taking in the flowers on the windowsill, the cards from church members, the Bible on my bedside table. "This must be so hard for you," she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Being sick, feeling helpless, watching your life slip away." I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip that smug look off her face, but I could barely lift my arm. "What do you want?" I asked. She stepped closer, her perfume filling the small space, something expensive and suffocating. "I just wanted to see you for myself," she said softly, "to put a face to the name. Ronald talks about you sometimes, you know, about how strong you are, how you never complain, how you've been so understanding." Understanding. Does he? I said flatly. He says you're at peace with everything, that you've accepted what's coming. My chest tightened, not from pain, but from rage. And what about you? I asked. Have you accepted what's coming? Her smile flickered just for a second. I don't know what you mean. I think you do. We stared at each other, two women, one dying, one waiting. Finally, she straightened up, smoothed her dress, and headed toward the door. It was nice to finally meet you, Loretta, she said, without turning around. I hope you find peace. Then she was gone, but her perfume stayed. It clung to the air, thick and choking, long after she left. I lay there, trembling, my hands gripping the thin hospital sheets. I felt violated, disrespected, reduced to nothing more than an obstacle in someone else's love story. When the nurse came in 30 minutes later to check my vitals, she frowned. Your heart rate's elevated, she said, adjusting the monitor. Are you okay? I wanted to tell her. I wanted to tell someone. But what would I even say? My husband's mistress just came to gawk at me like I'm an animal in the zoo? So I just nodded. I'm fine. But I wasn't fine. When Ronald came back later that evening, he was whistling. Actually whistling. How you feelin', baby? He asked, setting down a bag of takeout. I looked at him. Really looked at him. This man I'd loved for 32 years. This man I'd sacrificed everything for. This man who was counting down the days until I died. I had a visitor today, I said carefully. A woman. Said she knew you. He paused, just for a heartbeat. What'd she want? She said she was checking on you, making sure you were okay. Ronald shrugged. Probably someone from church. People have been real kind during all this. He was good. I'd give him that. His face gave away nothing. She was wearing red, I added. Something flashed in his eyes, but he recovered quick. Lots of people wear red, Loretta. You feeling all right? You seem confused. Confused. Like I was losing my mind along with my body. Yeah, I said quietly. Maybe I am confused. But I wasn't. For the first time in years, I was seeing things crystal clear.
They say when you're dying, your hearing is the last sense to go. I never believed that, until it happened to me. 3 days after the woman in red's visit, I was so weak I could barely keep my eyes open. The chemo had ravaged me. I'd lost 23 pounds. My skin hung off my bones like loose fabric. The nurses spoke in hushed tones when they thought I couldn't hear. Poor thing, won't be long now. Ronald must have heard them too, because he started acting different, more attentive. He'd sit by my bed for longer stretches, scrolling through his phone, but at least present. He brought me soup I couldn't eat. He read me Bible verses I couldn't focus on. He was performing, and he was good at it. But that Tuesday afternoon, his mask slipped. I drifted off after the nurse gave me pain medication, the kind that makes everything feel far away and underwater. I could hear sounds, but they felt distant, disconnected. That's when they came in. I heard the door open, footsteps, 2 sets. Is she asleep? A woman's voice. Her voice. Yeah. The nurse said she'd be out for a couple hours. Ronald's voice. Closer now. I wanted to open my eyes, but my body wouldn't cooperate. The medication had me trapped inside myself, aware but immobile. Good. We need to talk. I heard movement, a chair scraping, then the rustle of fabric as someone sat down. Ronald, I can't keep doing this, she said, her voice strained. Sneaking around, lying to everyone, watching you play devoted husband while I wait in the shadows. I know, baby, I know. Baby, that word again. You said months ago this would be over by now, but she's still here. The chemo's not working. The doctor said,
I don't care what the doctor said. I care about us, about our future. You promised me, Ronald. You promised once she was gone, we'd be together. Really together. Silence. Then Ronald's voice, quieter now. And we will be. You just gotta trust me. Trust you? I've been trusting you for 2 years. 2 years of hotel rooms and secret phone calls and pretending I don't exist? 2 years. They'd been doing this for 2 years. What do you want me to do, Tanya? Tanya. Now I had a name. I want you to start making arrangements. Real arrangements. The insurance, the house, the business, all of it needs to be transferred before her family starts asking questions. My blood went cold. It's already in motion, Ronald said. I talked to the lawyer last week. Everything's being handled. And the life insurance? How much are we talking? $350,000. Plus the house is paid off. The business is worth another $200,000. I heard her exhale. $500,000, she said softly. We could do a lot with that. We will. We'll go wherever you want. Start fresh. Maybe Florida. You always wanted to live near the beach. They were planning my death like it was a vacation. What about her sister? Tanya asked. Won't she get suspicious? Bernice? Nah, she loves the Tennessee. She hasn't visited in months. By the time she gets down here, everything will already be settled. And the funeral? Already talked to Serenity Gardens. They're holding a spot. I picked out everything. White lilies, oak casket, the whole thing. He'd planned my funeral while I was still breathing. That's morbid, Tanya said. But she didn't sound upset. She sounded impressed. It's practical, Ronald replied. When it happens, I want everything to move fast, no delays, no complications. When do you think? Doctor says maybe 2 weeks, a month at the outside. Her organs are starting to shut down. I heard fabric rustling again. Movement. I'm sorry, baby, Tanya said, her voice softer now. I know this is hard on you too. It is, but we're almost there. Just a little longer. Then I heard something that made my stomach turn. Kissing. They were kissing over my dying body. I should go, Tanya whispered, before someone sees me. Yeah, I'll call you tonight. I love you, Ronald. I love you too. More footsteps. The door opening, closing. Then silence. I lay there, my eyes still closed, my body still paralyzed by medication, but my mind screaming. Ronald stayed. I could hear him breathing, could feel him standing near the bed. Sorry, Loretta, but this is better for everyone, he said quietly, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. Then he left too, and I was alone with the truth. My husband wasn't just cheating, he wasn't just planning for my death. He was counting on it.
That night, I couldn't stop crying. The tears came in waves, silent and relentless. I didn't make a sound. I'd learned how to cry quietly over the years, but my body shook with the weight of everything I'd heard. The night nurse noticed. Her name was Denise. She was tall and sturdy, with kind eyes and hands that moved with practiced gentleness. She'd been taking care of me for the past 3 weeks, and unlike most people, she actually looked at me when she spoke, not through me, not past me, at me. Miss Loretta, she said softly, closing the door behind her. What's wrong, honey? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. How do you explain that your husband is planning your funeral while you're still alive? That the man you've loved for 30 decades is waiting for you to die so he can start a new life? Denise pulled up a chair and sat beside my bed. She didn't touch me, didn't press, just waited. He wants me dead, I finally whispered. Her expression didn't change. Your husband? I nodded, the tears flowing faster now. Tell me, she said simply. So I did. I told her everything, about the phone calls and the late nights and the woman in red, about overhearing their conversation, about the funeral arrangements, about the life insurance and the beach house in Florida. I expected shock, disbelief, maybe even doubt. Instead, Denise just nodded slowly. I've seen this before, she said quietly. You have? More times than I'd like to admit. Men who get tired of their sick wives, women who can't wait for their elderly husbands to pass, family members fighting over money before the person's even gone. She shook her head. People think hospitals are about healing, but sometimes they're about revealing who folks really are. What do? I asked desperately.
I can barely move. I can't fight him. I can't. Yes, you can, Denise interrupted. Her voice was firm, but not harsh. You're still here, Miss Loretta. You're still breathing, which means you still got power. What power? Look at me. I am looking at you, and I see a woman who just survived something that should have killed her weeks ago. You're tougher than you think. I wanted to believe her. Listen, Denise said, leaning forward. I can't make him love you. I can't make him a better man, but I can help you protect yourself. How? She glanced at the door, then back at me. Hospital policy allows us to monitor patient rooms when there's concern for safety, video and audio. Technically, it's for medical purposes, but if someone was planning something harmful to a patient, that footage could be very useful. My heart started beating faster. You do that? Honey, I took an oath to protect my patients. That includes protecting them from people who wish them harm. Her jaw tightened. Even if that person is family. But is it legal? Perfectly, as long as there's documented concern for patient welfare, which there is, because you just told me you feel unsafe. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small card. This is my niece, Angela. She's a paralegal, specializes in family law and estate planning. If you want, I can have her come by tomorrow, quietly. I stared at the card. Angela Morrison, legal assistant. Why are you helping me? I asked. Denise smiled sadly. Because someone helped my mama when she was in your position, and because I'm tired of seeing good women get buried by bad men. She stood up, checked my IV, then looked down at me with an expression I'll never forget. You're not alone anymore, Miss Loretta. You hear me? You're not alone. After she left, I held that card against my chest and cried again. But this time, they weren't tears of despair. They were tears of hope. The next morning, Angela came by during visiting hours. She was young, maybe 30, with natural hair pulled back in a neat bun and sharp, intelligent eyes. Miss Loretta, she said quietly, pulling the privacy curtain closed, Aunt Denise told me what's happening. I'm so sorry. Can you help me? I asked. She sat down and opened a slim folder. Yes, but we need to move fast. If your husband has already started the legal process to access your estate, we're on borrowed time. What do I need to do? Angela pulled out several documents. First, we're going to revoke his power of attorney. Then, we're going to change the beneficiaries on your life insurance. Then, we're going to make sure your assets are protected in a way he can't access. Can we do all that? We can and we will. She pulled out a pen. But I need you to be sure. Once we do this, there's no going back. He'll know you know. I thought about Ronald, about 32 years of marriage, about the vows we took and the life we built and the man I thought he was. Then I thought about him kissing Tanya over my dying body. I'm sure, I said. Angela smiled. Good. Let's bury him before he buries you.
Angela worked fast. Within 48 hours, everything was changed. New beneficiaries, new power of attorney assigned to Bernice, my sister. New protections on the house and the business accounts I'd helped build. Ronald had no idea. But Denise and I had one more card to play. We need proof, she told me on her next shift. Legal documents are great, but if we want to really protect you, we need him on record saying what he's planning. How do we do that? She glanced at the small camera mounted in the corner of my room. That's been recording for the past 3 days. Hospital security footage. But we need something more direct, something undeniable. Like what? Like him and his mistress discussing your funeral while you're still alive. My stomach clenched. You think they'll come back? I know they will. Men like Ronald get comfortable. They think they're untouchable. Denise adjusted my pillow, her movements calm and deliberate. We just need to give them the opportunity. 2 days later, that opportunity came.
I was weaker than ever. The doctors had reduced my pain medication because my kidneys were struggling, which meant I was more alert but in more agony. Every breath felt like swallowing glass. Ronald visited that afternoon, and for once, he seemed genuinely concerned. "You don't look good, baby," he said, sitting beside my bed. I almost laughed. Almost. "The doctor says it won't be much longer, maybe a week." Something flickered across his face. Relief, maybe, or anticipation. "Don't talk like that," he said, but his voice was flat. "You're a fighter." "I'm tired, Ronald. So tired." "I know," he said, checking his watch. "I gotta make a call. I'll be right outside." He left the room, and I heard his voice in the hallway. Low, urgent. "She's fading fast. Come by tonight, around 8. Visiting hours will be over, but I'll make sure the nurses let you up." My heart hammered against my ribs. Denise came in 30 minutes later, her face set. "He called someone," I told her. "I know, I heard." She checked the camera angle, adjusted it slightly. "We're ready." At 8:15, they arrived. I'd positioned myself carefully, eyes closed, breathing shallow, looking as close to death as possible. The door opened quietly, and I heard 2 sets of footsteps. "See?" Ronald's voice. "She's barely hanging on." "God, she looks awful." Tanya's voice, laced with disgust rather than pity. "Yeah, won't be long now." They moved closer to my bed. I could smell her perfume again, that thick, cloying scent. "Did you finalize everything with the funeral home?" Tanya asked. "This morning, Serenity Gardens. I picked out the plot, the casket, flowers, everything." "White lilies?" "Yeah, she always liked 'em." Tanya snorted. "How thoughtful of you." "I'm trying to make it look right, Tanya. People are watching." "People are always watching, Ronald. That's the problem. When does the life insurance pay out?" 30 days after death. Standard processing time." "And you're sure she didn't change anything? The beneficiary is still you?" "Of course. Who else would it be?" "Oh, Ronald, if only you knew." "What about her sister, Bernice? Won't she want a piece of everything?" "Bernice barely talks to Loretta. They had a falling out years ago over something stupid. She won't contest anything." Another lie. Bernice and I talked every week. "Good," Tanya said. I heard her heels click as she walked around the bed. "Because I'm done waiting, Ronald. I'm done being the secret. Once she's gone, I want a ring. I want a wedding. I want everyone to know we're together." "You'll have all of that, I promise." "You better, because if I find out you're stringing me along..." "I'm not. Baby, look at me." Movement. The sound of a kiss. Everything I've done has been for us, for our future. Including marrying her in the first place? Ronald was quiet for a moment. "That was different. I was young, stupid, I needed stability, and she provided it." My chest tightened with rage. "But she served her purpose, and now it's time to move on." Served her purpose? Like I was a tool, an appliance that had outlived its usefulness. "What if she wakes up right now?" Tanya asked suddenly. "What if she's listening?" My heart stopped. "She's not. Look at her. She's practically gone already." "You're sure?" "Positive. The nurse had said she's been unconscious most of the day. The morphine keeps her under." "Well, that's convenient," Tanya laughed. "Very." "So what happens next? Walk me through it." Ronald sighed. "When she passes, I call the family, we do the funeral, I play the grieving widower for a few weeks. Then, after a respectable amount of time, I'll introduce you as someone I met who helped me through my grief." "How romantic," Tanya said dryly. It's strategic. By the time anyone thinks to question anything, we'll be long gone. Florida, new life, new everything. And the business? I'll sell it, take the money and run. Green construction dies with Loretta. Everything I built, everything I sacrificed for, gone. You really thought this through, Tanya said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Had to. I've been planning this for 2 years. 2 years. While I worked, while I prayed for our marriage, while I loved him with everything I had. You're terrible, Tanya said, but she sounded delighted. I'm practical. What if something goes wrong? What if she doesn't die on schedule? Ronald was quiet. Then, so softly I almost missed it, he said, "Then we help things along." The room went silent. "What do you mean?" Tanya asked, her voice careful. "I mean, if it's taking too long, if she's suffering unnecessarily, it would be merciful to ease her passing." My blood ran cold. "Ronald, are you talking about—" "I'm just saying, the doctors already have her on a morphine drip. If someone were to increase the dosage slightly, nobody would question it. She's terminal anyway." "That's murder," Tanya whispered. "That's mercy," Ronald corrected. "And it's not like anyone would investigate. Hospice patients die all the time. It's expected." "You'd really do that?" Silence. "Then, if I had to?" Tanya exhaled slowly. "You're crazier than I thought." "No, just committed to our future." More kissing sounds, then footsteps. "I should go," Tanya said, "before someone sees us together." "Yeah, I'll walk you out." "Call me tomorrow?" "Always." The door opened, closed, silence. I lay there, my body trembling, my mind reeling. He was willing to kill me. Not just wait for me to die, but actively end my life. 10 minutes later, Denise came in. She didn't say anything, just looked at me, then up at the camera, and nodded. "We got it all." I started crying, not from fear, but from relief. "What now?" I asked. Denise squeezed my hand. "Now, we make sure he never gets the chance." The next morning, something miraculous happened. I didn't die. In fact, I felt stronger. The nausea that had plagued me for weeks started to ease. My appetite returned, just a little, but enough to notice. The nurses whispered about it, calling it a rally. That's what they call it when a dying patient suddenly improves. Usually it's temporary, the body's last burst of energy before shutting down completely. But this felt different. Dr. Patterson came by during his rounds, reviewing my latest blood work with a frown. "This is unexpected," he said, studying the numbers. "What is?" I asked, my voice still weak, but clearer than it had been in weeks. "Your kidney function is improving. Your white blood cell count is up. The tumor markers are—" He paused, looking at me over his glasses. "They're dropping." Ronald, who'd been sitting in the corner scrolling through his phone, looked up sharply. "Dropping? What does that mean?" "It means the chemo is finally working," Dr. Patterson said slowly. "I don't want to give false hope, but this is significant progress." I watched Ronald's face, watched the color drain from it, watched his jaw tighten. "How significant?" he asked. "Enough that I want to run more tests. If this trend continues, we might be looking at remission." The word hung in the air like a bomb. Remission. Ronald stood abruptly. That's great news. Really great." But his voice said otherwise. After the doctor left, Ronald paced the room, his phone clutched in his hand. "This is good, baby," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Real good." You don't sound happy. I am. I'm just surprised. The doctor said, I know what they said, but God works in mysterious ways. Ronald stopped pacing. Yeah, mysterious. He left an hour later, claiming he had a meeting. I watched him go, knowing exactly what he was really doing. Calling Tanya. Denise came by that afternoon with Angela. Did you see his face? Denise asked, barely containing her smile. I did. That's the face of a man whose plans just fell apart, Angela said, pulling out her folder, which means we need to move faster. If he thinks you're recovering, he might do something desperate. Like what? Like exactly what he said on that recording. Try to speed things along. Fear crept up my spine. You think he'd really? I think we don't take any chances, Angela said firmly, which is why we're getting you out of here. Out? Discharged, today if possible. You're improving, which means you can recover at home. Your home, not his. Where will I go? Your sister's. Bernice already knows everything. She's got a room ready for you. I felt tears prick my eyes. She does? Angela nodded. We called her yesterday. She's furious, by the way. Wanted to drive down here and confront Ronald herself, but we convinced her to wait. Does he know I talked to her? No, and he won't. We're keeping this tight. Within 6 hours, I was discharged. The hospital arranged for a medical transport. They told Ronald I was being moved to a hospice facility for end-of-life care. He didn't question it, probably thought it meant I'd die faster. Instead, the transport took me to Bernice's house in Tennessee. I'll never forget pulling up to her small brick home, seeing her standing on the porch, tears streaming down her face. She helped me inside, settled me into a bedroom with clean sheets and warm blankets, and held my hand while I cried. I got you, baby sister, she whispered. He can't touch you here. For the first time in months, I felt safe. But we weren't done. Angela and Denise had given me copies of everything, the recordings, the legal documents, the evidence of Ronald's affair and his plans. When you're ready, Angela had said, we'll use this, but only when you're ready. I needed 2 weeks to recover enough to think clearly. 2 weeks of Bernice's cooking, her prayers, her fierce protection. 2 weeks of slowly regaining my strength. Ronald called constantly. I didn't answer. Bernice told him I was too weak to talk, that the hospice facility had strict rules about phone usage. He believed her, or pretended to. Then, 3 weeks after I disappeared, I made my move. I called Ronald from Bernice's phone. Loretta? His voice was shocked. Where are you? The hospice won't tell me anything. I'm recovering, Ronald. Silence. What? I'm getting better. The doctors say I might actually make it. I heard him breathing. Heavy. Panicked. That's wonderful, baby. When can I see you? Soon, actually. I wanted to invite you to dinner. You and Tanya. Another silence. Longer this time. What are you talking about? Don't play stupid, Ronald. I know everything, and I think it's time we all sat down and talked about it. Don't you?
Ronald showed up alone. I'd arranged the dinner at a small restaurant in town, public enough that he couldn't make a scene, private enough that we could talk. Bernice wanted to come, but I convinced her to stay home. This was something I needed to do myself. He walked in looking thinner than I remembered, stressed. Good. Where's Tanya? I asked as he sat down across from me. I don't know what you're talking about. I smiled, pulled out my phone, set it on the table between us. Would you like me to call her? I have her number now. We could make this a party. His face went pale. Loretta. Don't. I held up my hand. Don't insult me by lying anymore. I'm done with lies. He stared at the phone like it was a weapon. How long have you known? He asked quietly. Long enough. The real question is, how long were you planning to let me die before you told me the truth? It wasn't like that. No. Then what was it like, Ronald? Explain it to me. He rubbed his face with both hands. When he looked up, I saw something I'd never seen before. Shame. I met her 3 years ago at a business conference. We got to talking, one thing led to another. Skip the romance novel version. I want the truth. He flinched. Fine. I was unhappy. Had been for years. We'd grown apart, Loretta. You were always working, always tired. We stopped being a couple and just became roommates. So you decided to find a replacement. It wasn't that simple. It never is it? Let me guess. She made you feel young again, excited, alive? Ronald looked away. Something like that. And when I got sick, you saw an opportunity. No, I never wanted you to get sick. But once I did, you sure made the most of it. He was quiet. I leaned forward. Did you love me? Ever? Of course I did. In the beginning, When did it stop? I don't know. Somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you. You stopped seeing me, I repeated. Is that why you planned my funeral while I was still breathing? His head snapped up. How did you... I heard you, Ronald. In the hospital. You and Tanya. Talking about the life insurance, the house, Florida, all of it. His face crumbled. Loretta, I'm so sorry. Are you? Are you really? Or are you just sorry you got caught? He didn't answer. I pulled out a small voice recorder from my purse, set it next to the phone. Do you know what this is? A recorder. Want to guess what's on it? The color drained from his face completely now. Every word, I said softly. Every plan, every cruel laugh, every time you kissed her while standing over my dying body, it's all here. You can't. That's illegal. Actually, it's not. Hospital security footage. Completely legal when there's concern for patient safety. Angela explained it to me. She's a paralegal. Very thorough. Ronald's hands were shaking now. What do you want? I want you to understand what you did to me. I want you to sit here and face the woman you tried to bury alive. I never tried to kill you. No. What do you call suggesting that someone increase my morphine dosage? His eyes went wide. I was talking. I would never actually... But you thought about it. You said it out loud. To your mistress, while I lay there dying. He put his head in his hands. I'm not a murderer. Maybe not, but you're something worse. You're a coward. The waitress came by, noticed the tension, and quickly left without taking our order. What are you going to do? Ronald asked finally. I'm going to divorce you. I'm taking half of everything, including the business I helped you build, the house, the savings, all of it. You can't. I already did. Angela handled it while I was in Tennessee. Funny thing about legal documents, they're much easier to change when you're alive. Ronald looked like he might be sick. And Tanya, I added, she's gone, isn't she? He nodded miserably. Left the moment the money looked uncertain? Another nod. Good. You two deserve each other. I stood up, gathering my phone and recorder. Wait, Ronald said desperately. What about the recording? Are you going to the police? I paused. Should I? Please, Loretta. I made mistakes. Horrible mistakes. But I never actually hurt you. You tried to erase me while I was still alive. You stole my dignity, my trust, 32 years of my life. That's not hurting me? I meant physically. Oh, Ronald, you have no idea how much deeper some wounds go. I walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. By the way, your business is under investigation. Tax fraud. Turns out, someone sent an anonymous tip to the IRS with very detailed financial records. His face went from pale to gray. What? Funny how things work out, isn't it?
The next 3 months were a blur of legal proceedings, medical appointments, and healing. My cancer went into full remission. Dr. Patterson called it a medical miracle. I called it divine intervention. Either way, I was alive when I shouldn't have been. The divorce moved quickly. Ronald didn't contest anything. He couldn't afford to, not with Angela's evidence hanging over his head. I got the house, half the business assets, and my freedom. Bernice helped me move back to Birmingham, but not to the house Ronald and I had shared. I couldn't stomach living in a place where he'd plotted my death. Instead, I sold it and bought a small cottage near Oak Mountain. 3 bedrooms, a porch with a swing, and a view that made me cry the first time I saw it. "This is yours," Bernice said, squeezing my hand. "All yours. No ghosts, no memories, just possibility." I started going back to church, the same one where Ronald and I had met all those years ago. Some people whispered when I walked in. They'd heard rumors about the divorce, about his affair, about everything. But most people just welcomed me back with open arms. "We've been praying for you," Sister Helen told me one Sunday, pulling me into a hug. "God's not finished with you yet." She was right. I went back to nursing part-time, not because I needed the money, but because I needed the purpose. There's something healing about caring for others when you've spent so long fighting for yourself. And then, 2 months after the divorce was finalized, I got a phone call from Angela. "You might want to sit down for this," she said. "What happened?" "He was arrested." "What?" My heart stuttered. "For what?" "Tax fraud, tax evasion, false reporting. The IRS investigation turned up years of financial crimes. He's looking at serious prison time." I should have felt vindicated, triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. "How long?" 5 to 7 years, minimum. His lawyer's trying to cut a deal, but with the amount of money involved, she paused. "There's more." "What?" "They also found evidence that he'd been embezzling from some of his clients, overcharging for materials, pocketing the difference. There are at least a dozen complaints being filed." So, the man I'd spent 30 decades building up was being torn down by his own greed. "And Tanya?" She laughed. "Last I heard, she moved to Atlanta, already got a new boyfriend, some tech executive with more money than sense." "Of course she did." "Loretta," Angela said gently, "you did this. You brought him down." "I didn't do anything. I just stopped protecting him." Sometimes that's the same thing. After we hung up, I sat on my porch swing watching the sunset over the mountains. I thought about Ronald, about the young man who'd charmed me at church, who'd promised to build me a house so big I'd get lost. He'd been right about one thing. I did get lost, just not in the way he meant. I got lost in his lies, in his betrayal, in the version of myself that thought love meant sacrifice without reciprocation. But I found my way back. A few weeks later, I got a letter. Prison stationery. Ronald's handwriting. I almost threw it away, but curiosity got the better of me. "Loretta, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to read this, but I need to say it anyway. I was wrong. About everything. I let greed and selfishness destroy the best thing I ever had. You deserved better. You always did. I know you probably think I'm only sorry because I got caught. Maybe you're right. But sitting in here with nothing but time to think, I see it clearly now. I didn't just lose you, I lost myself. I heard about your remission. I'm glad you made it. Really. You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for. I won't bother you again. This is goodbye. Ronald. I read it twice. Then I folded it up and put it in a drawer. Not because I forgave him, not because I wanted to remember him, but because I wanted to remember what I survived. The old Loretta would have written back, would have offered comfort, would have found some way to make his burden lighter. But that Loretta died in that hospital room. The woman I am now knows better.
It's been a year now since everything happened. I'm 68 pounds heavier, healthy weight, the kind that comes from actually eating and enjoying food. My hair grew back, softer and curlier than before. I've got more wrinkles around my eyes, but they're from laughing now, not crying. Denise and I have coffee once a month. Angela too. They've become more than the women who saved my life. They've become family. Bernice visits every other weekend. We sit on my porch, drink sweet tea, and talk about everything and nothing. She's the one who convinced me to tell this story. People need to hear it, she said. Women need to know they don't have to stay down just because someone tried to bury them. So here I am, telling you. I still go to church every Sunday. I still work at the hospital part-time. I still drive past the house Ronald and I shared, though it doesn't hurt anymore. It's just a building now. Nothing more. Someone asked me recently if I ever regret the 32 years I spent with Ronald, if I feel like I wasted my life. I told them no, because those years taught me something important. Love isn't just about what you give. It's about what you're willing to accept in return. And I accepted too little for too long. But I also learned that it's never too late to choose yourself, to fight back, to reclaim your story. Some people think revenge is about destruction, about making someone pay. But real revenge is building a life so beautiful that the person who tried to destroy you becomes irrelevant. Ronald's in prison. Tanya's moved on to her next victim. And me? I'm free. I wake up every morning in my cottage, make myself coffee, and sit on that porch swing watching the sunrise. I think about the woman I was, the one who believed that suffering in silence was the same as strength. I think about the woman in that hospital bed, listening to her husband plan her funeral. And I think about the woman I am now, scarred, yes, but alive, wounded, but healing, betrayed, but not broken. People ask me all the time, how did you do it? How did you survive? The answer is simple. I stopped waiting for someone else to save me and started saving myself. I stopped believing that love meant accepting crumbs and started demanding the whole meal. I stopped thinking I was too weak to fight and realized that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is refuse to die quietly. My cancer's still in remission. The doctors say it might come back, it might not. Either way, I'm not afraid anymore because I've already survived the worst thing that could happen to me. I survived betrayal. I survived abandonment. I survived a man who loved money more than he loved me. And I came out the other side whole. So, if you're listening to this story and you're in a situation that feels hopeless, whether it's a bad marriage, a toxic relationship, or just a life that doesn't feel like yours anymore, I want you to know something. You're stronger than you think. You're worth more than they told you. And you don't have to accept less than you deserve just because someone convinced you that's all you're worth. Fight back. Speak up. Choose yourself. Because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't watching them fall, it's watching yourself rise. Before I let you go, I want to say thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me share my story. If it helped even one person find their strength, then every moment of pain was worth it. Please hit that like button if this story touched you. Subscribe to my channel for more stories like this one.
And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from all of you. Lastly, download your ebook titled Suspense and Thriller Stories by clicking the link in the pinned comment. And remember, you're not alone. You're never alone. Now, go live your life, the one you deserve.